we started talking some about the 70 weeks of Daniel. Okay. I can hear that better myself. And last week we ended talking about the decree of rebuilding of Jerusalem. And there were 4 decrees. 3 of them really didn't count. It's the last one that counted by Artaxerxes in 445 BC. And we can read about that in Nehemiah chapter 2, but we're not going to go there. All the other decrees dealt with restoring the temple. And that isn't what the Holy Spirit was talking about in verse 25 of Daniel chapter 9. It says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times." No, we've all read in Ezra and seen how that was. And the book of Ezra is about Cyrus freeing the Jewish people and their struggle to rebuild the temple. Well, verse 25 isn't talking about rebuilding the temple. It's talking about rebuilding the city. So, in y'all's homework, read Nehemiah chapter 2. Specifically verses 5 through 8 and verses 17 and 18. And Nehemiah, as we read, was the cupbearer for the king. And the importance of being the cupbearer was the taste tester. So, if anybody's going to get poisoned, the cupbearer is going to get the poison first. So, and if you read Nehemiah and the king, Artaxerxes, they had a pretty good relationship because the king noticed that his countenance wasn't what it normally was. And then he proceeded to tell him, my city is in rubble and burnt. And if you read on through there, Artaxerxes says, well, how long will it take you? Give me a time frame and we'll send you some men out there and we'll get her going. And he give him, and this is all paraphrasing, he gave him paperwork where he could get timber from the king to go and do this thing. But that is the trigger point that we're looking for. It's the city to be built and not the temple. And we could do a whole class on the mathematics of this, but we're not. We're going to simplify it as much as we can. So the command to restore Jerusalem was, and we know this from a book, and I highly recommend that you get it. It's called The Coming Prince, and it's by a fellow named Sir Robert Anderson. And he worked for Scotland Yard. But he did a bunch of research to line all these dates up and prove it. So on March 14th, 445 BC is when this decree went out. So if we got 69 sevens, times 360, which their calendar is based on 360-day years. And like I said, we could have half a class on the leap years and all this stuff. But the simple form of it is, if you do the math, it comes out to 173,880 days. The Holy Spirit deals in exacts, not abouts. Okay? So from the time the decree was made to restore Jerusalem until Jesus Christ rode in on the triumphal entry was 173,880 days to the day. Okay? And that was on April 6, 32 AD. Jesus' ministry began 28 AD. And we can find that from the book of Luke, chapter 3, verse 1. And all this came to pass. And Jesus, if y'all recall, as we've read about Jesus' life, there's several times there they tried to push him to the forefront to be king. And he'd always slide to the side. It wasn't time, he'd tell them. It's not my time. Okay? So Zechariah 9:9 says, Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation. That's important. Lowly and riding upon an ass, and upon the colt, the foal of an ass. All right. Here's where the AP class starts. Let's go to Luke chapter 19. And all this does is set the stage so we can move forward. But I think it's very important that we set this stage because it ties a lot of things together. So Jesus, at this particular point, is fulfilling the prophecy of Zechariah 9:9. We go to Luke chapter 19, and we'll start about verse 29. And it said, And it came to pass, when he has come nigh the Bethphage in Bethany, at the mount called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, saying, Go ye into the village over against you, in which at your entering ye shall find a colt tied, whereon yet never man sat. Loose him and bring him hither. And if any man ask you, Why do you loose him? And this is Jesus' words. Thus shall ye say unto him, Because the Lord hath need of him. Not a Lord, but the Lord. And they that were sent went their way, and found even as he had said unto them. And as they were loosing the colt, the owners thereof said unto them, Why loose ye the colt? And they said, The Lord hath need of him. Now, I don't read about any argument or nothing here, but if I had a piece of livestock there and somebody's carrying it off, I might be a little more concerned, but the Lord hath need of him. And they brought him to Jesus, and they cast their garments upon the colt, and they set Jesus thereon. And as he went, they spread their clothes in the way. And when he was come nigh, even now at the descent of the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen, saying, Blessed be the King that cometh in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Well, they're singing right here. This is a psalm. It's in Psalm 118, and I think it's around verse 26, but the whole Psalm of 118, but they're singing this, which I thought was, I never really paid attention to it before. And some of the Pharisees from among the multitude said unto him, Master, rebuke thy disciples. And he answered and said unto them, I tell you that if these should hold their peace, the stones would immediately cry out. Okay, so I ain't going to get there yet. I'm about to get ahead of myself. So all these people are here. They're fulfilling the prophecy. It just amazes me how all this lines up, the timing of God, how it works out. And we take it for granted. I do. I mean, you don't really ponder on it, but all these people are here. And it's people, and we can read in other accounts, I believe Lazarus was there. It's people that Jesus had encountered in his ministry. But these were people that had been following him. It was not the whole city of Jerusalem that was rejoicing in his entry, which is very important also. Let's go on a little bit. It said, and when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it. Well, this is supposed to be a joyful time. But here, when he gets to a point that he can see the city, he weeps over it. Kind of odd. Why? Verse 42. It says, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace. Now he's talking to the Jews. But now they are hid from thine eyes. Okay, we're going to put this together right here. Right here, there was an act of judicial blindness cast upon the Jewish people. Spiritually blind. Okay? Brother Tony, would you mind getting Romans chapter 11, verse 25? I think that's the one I want. And that's Paul's going to show us something here that I have overlooked for a long time. And it really hit home with me. Romans chapter 11, verse 25. Did y'all hear that? Blindness upon Israel. And I've had a lot of people ask me over the years why Israel is in the condition that they're in. The people of Israel. And I never really answered because I didn't really have an answer. You know, I had attributed some of it to, you know, when Christ came in, they had a choice between Jesus or Barabbas. Give us Barabbas and let his blood be on us and our children. I'd always attributed it to that. But this curse is pronounced before that. They're going to be blind. They're not going to be able, because he's telling them, if you would have known that your peace has entered in among you, you would be doing some things different. And the scary part of this is, let's go on a little bit before we get into that. Okay, if thou hast known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. And we can see Paul is telling us that the Jewish people are blinded until the fullness of the Gentiles or the fullness of the church comes about. And why was Jesus crying? Verse 43. For thy day shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee on every side. Okay, this happened. 38 years after this happened, this event, 38 years after this happened, there was a feller named Titus Aspasia, with the 5th, the 10th, the 12th, and the 15th Roman legions, came and laid siege on Jerusalem. Dug a moat around it, and they sat there for 9 months. Killed 1 million people, starved out or pestilence another 500,000, the history books tell us. Jesus knew, because they didn't know their prophecy that their king was coming, that they were going to have to suffer this. Now you think about that as we go on here a little bit. 9 months. They slaughtered 1 million people. History books tell us this. Women, children, whatever. Another 500,000 died from famine and pestilence. And what they would do is they would, whatever water sources, unless you had an artesian well or a well inside the city, all the fresh water sources coming in, they would corrupt them. You know, they were merciless. And they tore the city down. There wasn't nothing left. Nothing was left. And this happened in 70 AD. And we can look back through our history books and see all these accounts take place. But Jesus held them accountable for not knowing their book. He knew the price they would have to pay for what they didn't recognize. Now you think about that. What us, what we've been given. We've been given the revelation of Jesus Christ and His salvation. Okay? Amongst all the other things that we know. That was real sobering for me, because what am I responsible for? We just stagger through this life thinking, got to go to work, got to make some money, got to do this, got to do that. Well, none of that counts through eternity. Well, I ain't going to say none of it, because, this is a given church. We all know that. We know we've got things that outreach, show Christ and all that, but do we take it serious? Do we take it serious? I fail there, because my mind and my judgment gets clouded a lot of times with life. Just life in general. And the book tells us that it's a few days and full of trouble. Yeah, brother. We're getting ready to go there. Luke chapter 12, verses 41. And I may back up on that a little bit. No, we'll start at 41. Luke chapter 12, and we'll start about verses 41, I believe. Yes, ma'am. Anytime you can't hear, say, hey, repeat that. I can't say nothing there. Okay. And this is Christ speaking here, okay? It says, Then Peter said unto him, Lord, speakest thou this parable unto us, or even to all? And the Lord said, Who then is that faithful and wise steward, whom his Lord shall make ruler over his household, to give them portion of meat in due season? Okay. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. You think about the resources that we have been given and we have wasted on things. Me. We're going to give an account of that. Okay. Of a truth I say unto you that he will make him ruler over all that he hath. But, and if that servant say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to beat the men servants and maidens, and to eat and drink, and to be drunken, the Lord of that servant will come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour when he is not aware, will cut him asunder, and will appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. But he that knew not, and did commit things worthy of stripes, shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. That is some sobering stuff right there. So, I do not matter. What I did for the cause of Christ is what matters. That's what will ring through eternity. Not what I did to make me happy, or Sally happy, or anybody else happy, as far as what we think of as happiness, but what we did for the cause of Christ. That right there, yeah, that was sobering, very sobering. When I think of sins of commission and omission, man, it's, Philippians tells us to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. I'm not to work out John Buck's or David's or Sally's. I'm to work out my own. I can't even do that. I mean, is it because we forget these things? Is it because we don't really take it serious? I think there's many reasons. You get caught up in things. And, it can be the noblest thing there is. But if we're not doing it with the right intentions and the right heart, it's not good. We live in a very hedonistic society, pleasure seekers. That's why you see, anything pleasure driven, motorcycles, boats, RVs, all that stuff is plumb off the hook. You can't even find nothing. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with having some fun, but where's that line? And that line may be different for everybody in this room. But I think we need to consider that line and how it applies to us. I've got a lot of stuff, and I try to use it to help other people. But is that me justifying in my mind to have that stuff? I don't know. Look at John Baker. Yep. We've got to keep our focus where our focus needs to be. And it's so hard. It is so hard. It's very distracting, the world we live in. The system is set up to everybody's scrambling around to do whatever, pay their house payment. Everybody's got to have a place to live. It's just such a scramble to do so many things. And we have to take time to work on our relationship with Jesus Christ. That time is what's going to get us into eternity and through eternity, the things that's going to matter. Like I said, when I was studying for this last night, I was like, oh, Lord. And this was for me. I've got to remember what's important. How much have I been given? How much responsibility have I been given? Whether I wanted it or not, I got it. So just keep pushing on, because I'm going to stop right here in verse 25, because next time we come in, we're going to hit the interval. There's an interval between Daniel's 69th and 70th week, and that's verse 26 and 9 in chapter 9. And then we're going to hit the 70th week, because the 70th week, Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, is the key to end-time prophecy. So I'm not going to rush through that. I'm going to stop right here and leave y'all something to chew on this week, because I'll definitely have to chew on that. Man, that's just sobering. Jesus expected those people to know their book and recognize his coming, and they didn't, and they had to pay the price. Jerusalem was destroyed. So how much are we responsible for?